Hi, what's up? Coming at you with a comparison video of a couple famous Air Max 90s in the infrared colorway. The one on the left here, which is actually the History of Air 2005 retro, and the one on the right is the 2010 20th anniversary retro. Kind of take a bottom up approach on these, and I want to just go over some of the differences because quite a few things changed in that 5-year span in terms of the construction of the shoe, even the colors used and materials to some extent as well. So kind of some interesting stuff. Hopefully it's not a redundant video or something you've seen elsewhere, but I figured I hadn't seen it, so why not do one before I get rid of these 2010s, because they're a little small on me. Bought them brand new from House of Hoops Foot Locker a year after release date. Got really lucky. Last of the ones they had happened to be my size, or so I thought. Snagged them for a discount and rocked them a few times, and decided to trade them in for a pair of J's to a good buddy of mine. So they're not for sale. Sorry guys. Anyway, picked up these in a bigger size, and they fit a lot better and give my toes the room they need. So getting down to it, I'm going to go ahead and give these a flip. And actually, that guy there. Let's take the left shoe of the 2010 and the right shoe of the 2005. So you notice right away that even though these are a little dirtier, that the color is in fact darker. It's almost got a hot pink hue to the ones in 2010. Soul Collector happened to talk about that too in a really good review they did. Probably the best one I've ever seen actually for the Air Max 90, and I've researched it quite a bit. Clearly these have hardly been worn, like I said, 3-4 times maybe, and these have been worn several more times than that since the nubbies are gone, the nipples off the waffle print there. However, some people would argue these are VNDS. They don't really have heel drag. The paint is really sharp on them, and they're just in really good shape. So, worn several times, but very well taken care of. So, in terms of that, it's really no change in terms of the pattern. Noting that, of course, this History of Air is larger than the 20th anniversary retro. I don't really see any other differences. We'll go to the sides, kind of chat about that for a sec. So you start to see some of the hue differences, where there's no dirt involved. The more hot pink tones versus the darker infrared tone, which just it follows a little more closely, like say the deep infrared on the 6s from 2000, which was slightly darker than the OGs from 1991. I would say this is really more of a deep infrared in comparison to what infrared has become in the last couple of years. So it's also a color that Nike's very particular about and doesn't use very often. They like to change the name, call it hot and solar and this and that, but infrared is kind of a sacred name apparently. Adidas also uses that name, and the color hue is less pink, it's more of a red, but it's not trademarked, so Adidas has their access to it. Getting a little further back here, notice that the mesh does feel different, but it looks almost identical. The Air Max rubber inserts in between the mud guards look really similar. This one is just a little less defined. This one actually has a harder material. This one has more of a rubberized feel, and the letters don't surface quite as tall, but it's really, really similar. Just as a softer edge look, you can tell just from the definition. This almost looks blurry on a camera, even though it's not much different. But airbags are both the same, especially given the fact that this is a size 12 versus a 13, so there's really no change there. This was unfortunately past the airbag decrease time frame where they had already started using nitrogen instead of the sulfur hydrochloride or hexafluoride, I think is what it says. But it's the gas that had the bigger air bubbles. They used to basically look like they were bulging out a little bit further into the window. unfortunately stopped using that gas, and it's harmful, I guess, to public health or some crap, even though they used it for like 20 years. Um, the cement on them, cement print or cement color here is lighter than it is here. It's slight. Where you really notice the difference isn't so much on the cement gray in the swoosh as it is on the upper. That is significantly darker on this shoe. It's almost more of a tan color. And the material is more of a roughed up faux suede. Definitely not real suede, people. This is not a suede shoe. No suede on this thing, but it's basically a roughed up nubuck. It's smoother. You can visibly see it's smoother on the 2010. I don't find the stitching lines to be quite as clean on them, but they are close. The mud guards are pretty different. The one on the 2005 feels pretty supple. It's a tanned leather, so it's got like the pebble green in it. The camera's having a hard time picking that up. There we go. And it just feels like leather. It's kind of got like a textured grippiness to it. This looks identical. It looks like tan leather on the 2010, but it feels slick like vinyl. It's definitely finished different. It's probably a cheaper leather. I kind of question whether it's even leather at all, but it may be a pleather substitute. It feels very different to the touch, even though they on foot look almost the same. Surprisingly, being that this is a smaller size, the mudguard is actually shorter on the older one than it is on the 2010 Retro. And you can really notice it here at the dip, right where those seams are, that this actually comes up higher here, more of a finger width than it is here, even though this is a full size larger. So that's kind of cool, but they also use a cheaper version of the material, so it's kind of up and down there. Similar thing to these tabs. This is kind of bizarre actually. So this one feels really hard and like not rubbery at all. This feels a little more rubbery. This feels very rubbery. It's almost like a grippy sole feel to it. And this feels actually like hard plastic. So literally these feel the same, and then these feel the same. So go figure. I don't know why that is. But for some reason they used a harder material here versus this is a nice, it's actually really grippy, and you can feel it like catch your finger. Same kind of thing on the black part too. This is really grippy on the 2010, and it's more of a slick plastic feel on the History of Air. I mean, ultimately I actually kind of prefer the harder plastic just because you're getting laces through it, and it's easier to get the laces in and out when material's not flexing and moving on you a lot. But it is kind of odd that they did this switch. Being that the exterior sides are, really not a whole lot different than the interior, I'm going to skip that. I'll look at the back real quick. This is the History of Air, and this is the 2010 Retro, 20th anniversary. You can definitely see the brighter, hotter pink infrared tint of the one here versus the darker one here. I know the lighting's not perfect, but it is noticeable. I definitely prefer the infrared on the History of Air instead of the real bright pink tone. Really, it's crazy light, or crazy bright on the tongue too. A lot darker looking on the tongue here. There's the kind of proof's always in the tag. Made in China, 05. They made these in about 6 days. From the 5th to the 11th, size 13. Made in China, 2010. And they, for some reason, crank these out over a really long period of time. I don't know why that is. But, yeah, these were from Foot Locker, size 12, so smaller. Insoles are very different. I don't think I've ever worn these. I pulled the insoles out right away. It's just got the typical Nike Air insole like you'll see on most other Air Max 90s, or Air Maxes in general. And then this one has the History of Air. I've already pulled out the insoles of the other shoes, so I'll kind of show you the difference here. From the top, obviously you got the 1, or excuse me, starting back here, you got the 1 and then the 90, the 91, which is the kind of the Air Max 3, the 180, 93, which is a favorite of mine because the bursts look a lot like that, 95, 97, 2000, and 2006. Kind of blurry, but I don't really care about those pairs, so I don't really pay attention. Soles are kind of reflected in the shoe. But the funny thing is, though, this is actually an Air Max 1 sole pattern. This looks pretty much exactly like an Air Max 1 sole. It's got the waffle print up front, and the toe, looks really nothing like this. So, stabs have a similar look to this Air stabs, but they use the Air Max 1 pattern on the bottom. It's just kind of a cool detail. Getting back to the front of the shoes, since we covered the back, the only other thing I was going to mention about the nylon is the mesh is smoother on this. It's got a rougher, coarser, just more durable feel. Kind of reminds me of original Jordan 11s. Just kind of a deeper nylon. They kind of smoothed it out over the years. The last couple things to cover in the front are pretty different, actually. You'll notice that the rubber toe cap comes up about the same on each one, but the shape is where things get really different. Almost squared this off. I mean, it's almost a line. It stops rounding around here and here, and both shoes look like that. Just to show you the ones up here, it's not much different. That one's actually even more square. And you lose some of the roundness that this had. It's a little flatter than maybe some of the original pairs, but it's still pretty round. The stitching is a little bit different shape, the History of Air. This is closer together. This is much closer to where the laces start, and it's kind of a wider C. It actually looks a little bit cleaner, but it is different, for good, bad, or otherwise. Laces are different. For some reason, these anniversary laces have this really kind of a cool texture, where it's real smooth on the top, and then it's got these little ridges on the edges, like an edging. These are really just standard white laces that you would see on most Air Maxes, Jordans, just Nikes in general. About 7-8 millimeters across, just a woven weave, nothing smooth about them, so quite a bit different there. The lace loops on the tongues are different. The material here feels pretty much identical on each one. It's very slick, smooth, whatever. Looks pretty much identical. But the lace loop on the tongue is kind of a similar looking material to this. It's definitely rougher, more coarse, kind of like the eye stays on 11s, good thing to compare it to. This is just full on the same mesh as this. So that's pretty different that they tied that in. As for the Nike Air Max tags on the tongue, I actually personally prefer the one on the 2010 version. It's actually pretty dark. It doesn't really even match the rest of the shoe's infrared. It's almost got more of a red tone to it, especially when you compare it to that pink that's right on the back side, or how pink the infrared tone is on this. It's thicker embroidered, so it actually stands out more, and I don't know, it just looks sharper to me. This is cool. I think the tone is much better matching to the rest of the shoe. It's just that deeper infrared color. It doesn't look as red, but it's thinner, almost a little bit see-through, and just doesn't look quite as clean. It's got the double registration marks on both of them though, and they're stitched in pretty much the same. So that's about it in terms of comparison. It's everything I could find that stood out as noticeable to me. I'm sure there's some other, mild shape differences. Hard to compare height since the shoes are different sizes. But just to kind of give them a look from a couple different angles again. And final comparison, my ideal size is 12.5, and I wish I could always find that size, but unfortunately it's quite difficult. So I had to go with the 13 on these, of course, but I was able to get 12.5s in a couple other pairs that are of the infrared variety. I see that ones that released in some places on New Year's Eve day of last year, 2012, and these are the OG infrareds. I have not worn these once, and I have swapped the laces. They do have the white laces, but I went with an all infrared look. There's the laces there, so I just like infrared a lot, so might as well wear it that way. Got the Nike ear hang tag. I'm not going to do a big comparison, but just kind of wanted to show the different infrareds that come out. And then these are what a lot of people call the reverse infrareds. Technically the color is hot red. There's the insoles. Got that Nike tree on there. And this shoe I've probably worn twice. Got the metal aglets, which is a pretty sweet add-on. It's got the swooshes on the aglets. And then it's got the same laces otherwise that the History of Air pair has. But yeah, this is it's a really bright tone as well. It's really similar to the 2010s. There's not a whole lot of difference in terms of the tone. I'd say it's I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe the difference. It's really similar. It's a little more pink if anything, but the mesh is way different on these. It's actually much more like original pairs that I've seen these pictures of. It's really smooth, but it's got this cool pattern to it that you don't see in these other ones. This is definitely the coarsest, and this is very smooth as well. This is definitely the smoothest feel. All the colors are darker. The toe is a lot more rounded. You can tell a pretty big difference right there versus these. They just are overall like a better made shoe. People were knocking them because of the slightly yellowed midsole. I'm not a huge fan of it either, but it doesn't make or break the shoe for me. The leather is really legit on these. It's not tanned. It's like a lightly tumbled, smooth grain leather. It just feels like broken in and nice, almost like a kangaroo feel. It's really definitely the nicest leather mudguard on any of the pairs I have. I'd say the next closest would be the reverse infrareds, which is a lightly tumbled leather. You obviously see the full grain. It's a little bit slicker feeling. But it's not the tan leather that you'll have on the History of Air pair. There you see the little tiny dots. It's a tanning process. But anyway, that's my infrared set for now, and I'm probably going to be parting ways with these guys here for a pair of Jordans, trading those off to a friend of mine here tomorrow or the next day, and going to be happy with the 3 pairs I have left. And if I ever score a pair of 12.5s in either of these, I'd be really happy, but for now, at least I got 2 out of 4 in that size, and that's my Air Max 90 infrared set. So sorry this is a crazy long video, but there's not a whole lot of comparison videos out there, and may help you decide what ones you want to go with, and hopefully you find it knowledgeable and helpful. It's just my point of view experience with having several years of kicks to look at and review and enjoy wearing eventually. So peace out. Thanks for commenting, keeping it clean, rating, and subscribing, and thanks for checking this out. Come back for more soon.